to the Indianapolis 500 for defending champion Buddy Lazier. Buddy is at Walt Disney World with the IRL's radical new cars, every one brand new and fitted with all new engines. This is the first test, 200 miles at Walt Disney World Speedway for the Indy Racing League. The start of the race is just moments away. Kingdom, Walt Disney World in Florida. But we're over at the Walt Disney World Speedway because the Indy Racing League is ready for the Indy 200. And never in history has a major motorsports series started a race with all newly designed cars with newly created engines. Today is a historic first. We start with Jack Arute.
And while part of that historic first, the package, the chassis, while the overall dimensions and the ride heights, etc., all very similar to last year, there are some changes. Cost, tub width, the use of the gearbox, etc. But probably the most distinctive thing that you will see is directly behind a driver's head. An opening that leads down into the engine compartment and forces air to the other part of the new package. And for more on that, here's Gary Gerald.
Jack, for the first time in over 30 years in this type of racing, the engines that power these cars do not have turbochargers. They're naturally aspirated. That means there's no pop-off valve that we've seen in the past that used to sit right here in the bodywork behind the driver's head. These racing engines are based on production models that you and I might well drive in the street. The Oldsmobile Aurora, the Nissan Infiniti. Now, these engines will generate 675 horsepower. That's down about 200 horsepower from what we've experienced in the past. That, with the reduction in downforce with a chassis redesign, means that these cars today about 15 miles per hour slower than they were 1 year ago at this racetrack. Jack?
Gary, hard to believe that this gentleman right here has always been a key player in all the IRL races, but Tony Stewart has never won. Will that change today, Tony?
So we hope so. You know, these guys have done a really good job getting this car prepared, and all the work they've done in preseason testing has just been unbelievable. So, you know, we need it for the team. The team deserves this as much as I do.
John Menard and the Menard package are gone. They run the same package as everybody else. And there's been other news this week at Walt Disney World Speedway. And for more on that, here's Gary Gerald.
First day of practice Thursday morning, horrifying crash in turn 3. Veteran driver Davy Jones, driving for Rick Gallis, lost control. The car backed into the third turn crash wall, impact 106 Gs. Ricocheted down off the inside wall. He was unconscious, airlifted to a nearby regional medical center in critical condition. Fortunately, he regained consciousness. X-rays, CAT scans proved to be negative. He is now convalescing. He's reported in serious condition, but he's alert, awake, and talking to those who tend to him. That opened the door for rookie driver Jeff Ward to step into the backup car for Rick Gallis. Jeff Ward, with 1 day of preparation, stepped in here, qualified this car 8th. And Jeff, the question for you, as a former motorcycle, many-time national champion, here you are with maybe your best opportunity. How comfortable do you feel for 200 miles?
I feel really good, Gary. I mean, the Gallis crew and David Jones have done an excellent job with the car, so it's made my job a lot easier. So now I just have to get out there in race conditions and then bring it home.
Jeff Ward, car number 4 from the 4th row, Paul.
And Davy Jones, everybody here wishes you well. Now, this is the start of ABC's motor racing coverage for this 1997 year, and it leads you right up to the 81st running of the Indy 500. We're going to have plenty of coverage. And a couple of additions. Joining our IRL coverage team is the Gas Man, the 83 winner of the Indianapolis 500, none other than Tom Sneva. Tom, all of these variables that we have talked about, what's that going to do to the driver's head?
Well, it's like Christmas Day for these drivers. Shiny new toys. You rush to put them together, but if you play too hard or wind them too tight, sometimes by the end of the day they don't work as well.
Couple of factors there, the chassis and the engines. What are they most worried about?
Actually, the drivers have been real pleased with the chassis. They can anticipate and predict what they're going to do actually before they do it. So they're happy with the chassis. The big question mark is the engines. They just haven't had many miles on the motor, so that's what we need to look for.
The track here, 1 mile, 3 turns. It's good.
Really is. 3 distinct turns, different banking in each corner, but actually 2 of the turns you run flat out. You never lift. So it really boils down to turn 1, and who's going to be able to get back on the power the quickest is going to be the guy that runs up front all day.
Well, if we've talked about all these stories, who's your choice?
That's a tough one, Paul. You got to look at experience with Lyndike and a good year, but then you got Tony the Tiger, and you've got youth, and you've got a team that has actually had more time with these cars and motors than any other team. So that could be something that we need to follow.
Well, enough of the talking. We're ready to go racing. Let's go down to Jack.
And Paul, I'm with Mr. Judson Green, who's the president of Walt Disney Attractions. Sir, it's all yours.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
And there is that brand new roar. The new normally aspirated engine as they're ready to go. We'll be right back for the start.
ABC Sports coverage of the Indy 200. Brought to you by Pennzoil Motor Oil, first to fully achieve the tougher 1997 GF2 performance standard. Goodyear, #1 in tires. True Value, official hardware store of IRL in garages everywhere. And Monsoon, power, attitude, audio for the road.
The cars have begun their rollout. Let's take a look at how they line up. On the pole is Tony Stewart, his second pole in the IRL series for the 25-year-old youngster. Alongside is Arie Luyendyk, the winner on the Phoenix Mile last year. In row 2 is Buzz Calkins, the defending champion of the Indy 200 at Walt Disney World, and Scott Sharp, the winner at New Hampshire and the IRL co-champion in '96. In row 3, it's Eddie Cheever, his best starting position since qualifying 4th last year at Indy. And Scott Goodyear, his first IRL start. In row 4, it's Davey Hamilton, 34-year-old driver from Idaho, in one of A.J. Foyt's cars. Jeff Ward will be alongside the former motocross champion, replacing Davey Jones. And in row 5, Jim Guthrie, his first top 10 qualifying effort. Fermin Velez will be on the outside of 5, a veteran from Spain who logged his best IRL qualifying spot thus far. In row 6, it's Buddy Lazier, the winner of last year's Indy 500. And Marco Greco, a former 500cc motorcycle champion. In row 7, John Paul Jr., a veteran driver with a pair of top 10 efforts in IRL competition. And Mike Groff, who is currently atop the Indy Racing League point standings. Jarrett Schroeder is on the inside of row 8. He's prepared for this day by racing in Formula 4s and Atlantic cars. And outside is Danny Angayas, who finished a strong 7th at Indy last May. The 9th row, Roberto Guerrero, veteran, ran 5th here a year ago. Dr. Jack Miller, 35-year-old racing dentist, making his IRL debut. And alone in the 10th row, Stéphane Gregoire, with a pair of top 10 finishes in his 5 previous IRL starts. Let's go back down to Jackaroo.
And Paul, we're with the new executive director of the IRL after 37 years of watching racing. Leo Mel, your impressions here today?
Well, we're making history today, Jack. All new cars, all new engines, great drivers. What a great setting. 35 years, I never saw a better place to race than Walt Disney, and this is just chapter 1. We're going to get better.
Let's check in with Gary Gerald. Gary?
One of the tough luck stories this weekend centers around the veteran driver and the colorful number 21 car, Roberto Guerrero. He was testing on Wednesday when they encountered a problem with their new Infinity engine, which they'd just gotten. They had to ship the engine back to the West Coast, awaiting a new one. Didn't get here until yesterday after qualifying. Finally, they got it in late last night. Had only a handful of laps this morning to make sure everything is working. He's at the back of the field, hoping that he can come from the back to challenge in basically an untested race car.
Yeah, but Bobby G and the Pennzoil cars ready to go. 200 laps here today, expecting the first stops at 60 to 75 laps, but fuel is one of the questions. There's plenty of it for the race, but exactly when they're going to stop for it is the question.